Hi guys, it's Ray here from City Fan TV. How are you doing? Danny 2ME, you're in the house already. You're always getting in before I go live. Same as yesterday, mate. I was messing about with a few little bits and pieces. I had to send a link to Greg Tomlinson, who's going to be joining us tonight in a few minutes to talk Newcastle. I should have got some of my Geordie lingo ready tonight, and I didn't have time. I always like to greet foreigners, people from other lands, in their own language. So I'm just going to wait for him, hopefully, to turn up any minute now. And in the meantime, I'm just going to nip onto Twitter and stick this out on Twitter, into the Twitter sphere, so that people are aware that we have started. Just give me a second to go up. There we go. So I think we're just about ready to go. Just wait for Greg is here. Greg is in the house. Greg, I don't know if you can hear me. You're going to go live any second now, and here we go. Hey, Greg, how you doing, mate?
Thanks, how are you?
You didn't check the volume.
Yeah.
Can't hear you, Greg.
Can you hear me?
Gotta get your mic
on. Can you hear me?
Oh. Live streaming. I can't hear you, Greg.
You can't hear me. Can you see me?
Yeah, you.
Let me try again. Give me what? Can I try again?
Let's give Greg a chance. I can hear you.
Can I try again?
No, you're on. You're on. Let me just turn my other thing off. Give us a sec, Greg. Let's get you back. Let's make sure it's working. All right, try it. Let's go again. Can I hear you? Tell us who you are, Greg, and what you do. Have I lost you? Hi, Catherine. Hi, Christopher. I can't hear him. It was my mistake. It was my mistake. But I've lost him. I've lost Greg. I've lost him. It was my mistake. Schoolboy error. I haven't done a live stream for a couple of weeks with somebody else, and I forgot to turn my volume off when I do it. Copy the video. Oh, Greg's gone. Hopefully, Greg will come back. Whilst we're waiting for Greg to come back. Oh, are you back, Greg? Here we go.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. I can hear you, mate. How you doing?
I'm not bad. Sorry about the technical problems there.
Oh, it's my fault. My fault. I hold my hands up. Unlike City and FFP, I hold my hands up. It was my mistake. I had my volume off because obviously when I go live, I copy the link off YouTube and stick it on Twitter so people can have a look. So I turn the volume off. Otherwise, you'll get the echo.
Yeah. I get it.
So thanks, Christopher. Thank you very much for putting us in touch with Greg. I've got to start. I'm just going to slip into Man City mode. So I'm just going to go back just to me for a second. And I'm just going to go through on this day in history. And then we'll go straight into, we'll go back to Greg. Because I'll tell you what we want to talk about. We want to talk about, obviously, this. It looks like this takeover from the Saudi businessman is going to happen. So we want to talk about what the last, is it 10 years or so? I can't remember now, how long
13.
Mike had been there. 13. Unlucky for some. So we can talk a little bit about that, and then a little bit about the hopes and expectations of Newcastle fans. What's it going to like for the city, the club, and the response from what you're going to get in the media as well, which has already started looking at your owner's background, and we're going to look into that. But first, I've got to start off by at least doing the on this day in history, since my mate Cole has done me a backdrop. So I'm going to just, Greg's gone.
Oh, have I?
Your picture's gone, mate.
I'm still here.
Are you still there?
Right.
You're going to disappear for a second, Greg. I'm just going to go through a couple of minutes of Man City news, and then we'll get back to you. So Greg's going to disappear for a second. So I'm going to go through this quickly, guys. On this day, April 16th, City in 2011, we beat Man United 1-0 in the FA Cup semi-final at Wembley in front of almost 90,000 fans. Hey, Robert Lang, hope you're well. And there you go. You can see the big man, legend. Some people think he is. Some people think he isn't. Yaya Toure scored the goal. But I'm going to show you another picture because I love this picture. I love this. Let's get it up. Mario's wink sparks a riot. I loved Mario for the naughty things he did. The fireworks, why always me, some stupid antics on the pitch and off the pitch and the bib and all sorts of things, penalties. For me, one of the best moments of his career at City was when he winked at Rio Ferdinand and Rio Ferdinand went ape. Loved it. I mean, could have a bit of banter. And I'm just going to change this green screen again. If I've got it, here we go. This is what I want to put on tonight because that's what we're going to be talking about. I'll talk about it in a second. Hi, Jason. Hope you're well. Hi, David Walker. 2 minutes before the Newcastle takeover, I'm going to bring Greg back, but I'm just going to talk briefly about Patrick Roberts because there is a bit of news. It's only going to take a minute. Patrick Roberts, kid is. We bought him from Fulham back 12 million quid. Back in the day, that was back in 2015. He stayed with us for 6 months. He had one or two sub games or something. He came on as a sub for Jesus Navas against Real Madrid in a pre-season friendly Champions Cup. Made his first team debut in September 2015 as a sub against Sunderland in the League Cup, and his league debut against Spurs when we got battered 4-1. And he went off to Celtic on loan in the January transfer window 2016, meant to be for 18 months. He did really well there. He came back to City. Pep had turned up, and Patrick Roberts, rather than stay at City and learn under Pep and fight, trying to get in, somewhere with the squad and get into the team, he decided to go back to Celtic for another 12 months, which I thought was a chicken's way out. Really, it was an easy. Yes, he might have done really well at Celtic the season before, but if he wanted to progress with his career, he had to do something. He had to take that step forward. Going back to Celtic, I think, has basically stalled his career. He went back for 12 months, and ever since then, he's been on loan at Girona. He's been at loan at Norwich. Now he's at loan at Middlesbrough. And the news is today, Celtic want to buy him for about 3 million quid. Could City sell him? I think City will sell him. He's not going to get anywhere at City now. He's burnt his bridges with Pep by not fighting for his spot. 3 million, I think that's cheap. I'd rather always go for about 5 million, put a buyback clause or a sell-on clause or something so that if he should make it, he's worth more than 3 million quid. And if Celtic then sell him on or win something, we get some bonuses or something. We've got to have something in that deal. Right, that's it. So about Man City, we moved on. There's nothing to talk about. I'm just going to show you this. I hope that's right. I'm just going to stick that on for you.
Yeah.
So that's it. Who we're talking to is Greg Tomlinson from the Newcastle Supporters Trust. I hope that's the right. I hope that's correct, the right one. Yeah. Well did a bit of searching on the old interweb. Okay, Catherine, occasionally it'll be a bit glitchy because we're doing it on a live stream. So bear with us. Occasionally it will lag, but it's what you get for live streaming. Now we're here to talk about a club that we all know, and we all, I think most of us still like Newcastle. Not want to say growing up, actually. I wasn't growing up when Kevin Keegan was there, doing a lot of wonderful stuff. And to this day, I'm saddened that you didn't beat United to the league title. And we've had some epic battles, probably going a long way back. I think in the 50s we played you in the FA Cup. Off the top of my head,
I mean, the most important thing, I know you call them United, but to us, there's only one United, and we play in black and white.
I tell you, it's a silly thing. I was shaving my head today, and I thought, I'm doing this thing tonight. Now, do I leave stripes? And do I do that? Because I haven't got a black and white shirt. I thought I've got to try and do something. But I thought, nah, let's keep it sensible. But we're here to talk about Newcastle. And this potential takeover. There's a lot of interesting points here to look at. I mean, in this takeover, I think what we're going to start with first, Greg, and you can tell everybody who you are and what the Supporters Trust do, and then I'll let you roll on to Mike Ashley.
Yeah, so thanks for having us on. Yeah, so I'm Greg Tomlinson. I'm one of the board members that volunteers to run the Newcastle United Supporters Trust. We're one of the biggest supporters trusts in the Premier League in the country. We have approximately 10,000 members, and we work, to strive for a better Newcastle United, and it's been tough recently.
Oh, yeah.
Doing that with the current ownership. So obviously, interesting news that looks like the takeover is gonna go ahead. And yeah, the end of 13 years of disaster after disaster from Mr. Ashley.
Has he really been that bad? Has he really been that bad, Mike Ashley?
Yes, in a word. Basically taken a football club that had its flaws but was ambitious, and turned it into something that has no ambition. Sporting excellence is not a thing that exists at Newcastle United. It exists to finish 17th every year, and to have the Premier League money and the revenue that comes with that, and the exposure that comes with that for his business. So sporting excellence has been banned. There's been 20 years ago, Newcastle had probably the best training ground in the world when it opened. It was a refurbishment of an existing building, but it was a really good training ground. Hasn't changed since. It's out of date. No investment in any of that.
Yeah.
No investment in the stadium. The stadium, great location. It's dirty. It's outdated.
Yeah.
It's just, there's been no investment. The whole club has been run on absolute bare bones for so long now. And that's without even getting into the other things that have gone on. So, renaming the stadium the Sports Direct Arena, the treatment of Kevin Keegan, the treatment of Jonas Gutierrez when he had cancer, Joe Kinnear as manager. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. I could stay here for hours talking about that.
Joe Kinnear. Do you have Dennis Wise up there as well?
So
Joe
that was
Kinnear?
one of his big mistakes. So it didn't start off that badly for Ashley. He, he came in. Sam Allardyce was in charge of some horrific football, and he binned him off, brought back Keegan. Everyone was happy. Actually played some decent football under Kevin Keegan. And then Keegan started getting undermined. And the big mistake he made was he surrounded himself with advisors, and they were the wrong advisors. So Dennis Wise, director of football, this guy called Tony Jimenez, who used to be a steward at Chelsea, who knows nothing about football, and then this other guy, Jeff Viteri, who was apparently a scout. Keegan had Luka Modric in the Newcastle training ground until those guys offended his agent, and he went and signed for Spurs on the premises in the training ground.
That's unbelievable.
And they offended him.
I mean, sometimes when you look back at not just Newcastle, but other clubs or anything, you get these what-if moments. And it is, what if you got Luka Modric and put him into a half-reasonable team, and he made that difference? What you've seen at Spurs and at Real Madrid.
Yeah, good play.
He's a great player.
Modric's agent idolized Keegan from when he was a player, and that dynamic worked. And, managers like Kevin Keegan, and then when we had Rafa, they will attract players on their own. When, especially as a club like Newcastle in the northeast, you kind of need that a little bit. And your likes of Alan Pardew, they don't attract those types of players. But someone like Keegan, someone like Rafa did the same. But to basically, from what we understand, one of those guys said, well, I don't think he's that good. I don't think he's worth it. I don't think he's that good. And that was the end of that. You offended him, and he left. So and went down and signed for Spurs a couple of days later. So, it's just that's just one example, of undermining, constant. And then the club was found in a employment tribunal to deliberately and willingly mislead the press, the public, and the fans of the football club. A judge found that.
You can't get much worse than that.
Yeah, on purpose. So the trust beyond broken.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to ask. There's been a lot of false starts with takeovers for Newcastle.
Yeah.
Amanda Stave has been mentioned before. Do you think it's really going to go ahead? It feels like it's going to go ahead this time. Do you really think it's going to go ahead?
When it looks like it, if you look at what all the very credible journalists are saying, is that it's as good as done. The Premier League tests have started. There's been a lot of activity on Company's House, which suggests it's happening. So, always skepticism with Mike Ashley. He's tried to sell the club so many times. What's different this time? You look at where we are with, the world in terms of coronavirus. He might just be thinking, right, I need to focus elsewhere. he's never taken a real interest in the club ever since, you know, he started making a couple of mistakes early on. And I think if you look at it from his point of view, it's an inconvenience now. Doesn't spend time on it because it doesn't make him any money. He's not interested in it. So yeah, let him just go. Like, you know, it's best all around that he just goes.
That's it. I think one of my feelings is football's obviously going to change after all this is over. And obviously there's a feeling that there's going to be less money around because the world's going to be in a bit of a meltdown and a depression, and there's going to be issues with broadcasting rights and how much people want to pay next time, whether they you know, Sky and BT might cut back on some of the money that they give in the future because who knows what's going to happen with this season. Sponsors, for some smaller clubs, sponsors will actually, those businesses that sponsor will go out of business. We saw Exeter Rugby, their sponsor was Flybe. They went out of business, so they've got no sponsor. And whereas other clubs might still be getting the money from the sponsor, Exeter are getting nothing. So there's that risk.
Well, the connection's gone.
If he can get his 300 million quid out. Sorry, what I'm saying is, if he can get his 300 million quid out of this, he might just think, let's just do it. Or even if it's 250, he might just think, in 3 months' time, this business might be worth 200 million or whatever.
The reports are that it's affected the price. So yeah, I think there's a fair chance of that. Yeah.
And I think obviously his other businesses are suffering as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, with his decision to make to try and claim that Sports Direct were a key workers and then putting prices up. So I'm expecting his other businesses are suffering terribly. So it might be the right time for him just to bail, take what he can.
Absolutely.
So that's what the feeling is. It's going to happen.
Yeah. The feeling is it's as good as done. Premier League owners and directors tests underway. So yeah, the feeling is, and from what we read, that shouldn't be an obstacle. So yeah, the feeling is it's as good as done. Yeah.
Okay. The next question is, what are your expectations? Are you expecting an injection of capital and some money to actually finally upgrade your facilities and spend a bit more money on your team?
Yeah, absolutely. Without a doubt, you know, I don't think, you know, this group will be buying it without that ambition. I think we'll also see a little bit similar to what you've seen at Manchester City in terms of investment in the wider infrastructure and beyond, in that investment in the city. So one of the interesting things on board is the Reuben brothers coming on board. The Reuben brothers in their own right would probably be the third or fourth richest owners in the Premier League, about 20 billion wealth, but they also own large amounts of property in Newcastle already, and they're active in the development market there in terms of residential development, office developments, and things like that. So that's a fascinating little small add-on to that joint consortium, really. So I think we'll see that as well, how that goes. You know, time will tell, but I think we're definitely going to see some change. Absolutely.
I mean, for your City, I mean, if we look at the parallels or compared to what happened at Man City, obviously, with our owners, and how they've invested in not just the club, but the facilities and the team and everything else, but the surrounding areas with lots and lots of projects. You know, we've got the Man City football ground there. We've got tennis and squash there. We've got the velodrome across the road. We've got the Academy Stadium, lots of new housing. They're going to build a new music arena, lots of other developments around the city, because what the investment in Man City has done, it gets you cozied up with the council, and the council seem to be very keen and amiable to do business with the new owners. And do you think that's going to make could that have the same effect with the Reuben brothers and others in Newcastle and actually transform part of the city?
I think it could. I think it really could. Yeah, I think it could. You know, you see the transformation of that area of Manchester. It's been pretty phenomenal, hasn't it, over the last 15 years? When did these guys buy your club? 2008. So I lived in Manchester in 2008, believe it or not.
Sorry?
I lived in Manchester in 2008.
Whereabouts?
I was a student in Manchester, so usual places.
Yeah.
I was in Manchester University from 2006 to 2010.
Okay.
So
what were you studying, out of interest?
Urban planning. So
Okay.
yeah, funnily enough. So know the area pretty well. So yeah, no, I think we will see some that type of thing. You know, I think there's a fair chance of that. Yeah.
Do you think they're going to spend big on?
I think so, because I think they have to.
Yeah.
Because, you know, not only is the training ground out of date, not only does the academy need an update. The club is run on skeleton staff. Newcastle has around about 220 employees as a football club. You know,
that's quite low.
That's incredibly low. You know, because everything's outsourced. Ashley's model is that everything goes out. So, you know, all the catering, everything outsourced. Yeah. Everything is outsourced. You know, everything they can, they get rid of. So I think, you know, the whole business needs a complete reorganization. Yeah. You know, there's no executive management. There's no board. There's nothing. There's no there's nothing there. It's a complete shell. It operates on an absolute bare minimum. So there's going to have to be an incredible amount of investment in that.
Yeah.
But then equally, the playing squad, if we look at the playing squad, it is still half the squad that got us up from the Championship. You know, Rafa worked wonders with that squad. How Steve Bruce has us in mid-table when we played some of the worst football I've ever seen in my life, but somehow had a lot of luck. I don't understand. You know, I don't understand how we're comfortable in mid-table even now, because some of what we've seen has been horrific. Yeah. But we are. I suspect we'll probably see Rafa come back. Is the most likely outcome. You know, he knows the club. He knows he clearly knows Amanda Staveley. So I think that's probably most likely to happen. And he can obviously knows the squad in the main, so he can pick that up straight away. But it'll be slow growth. It's not going to be immediate. We're going to need our Rubinho and our Alano before we get our De Bruyne and our Aguero.
No, it happened in City. We got taken over in 2008, and you know it was a bit shambolic at times, but it took us 3 years to win something. I thought I heard Jose had his, pricked his ears up because he's going to get the boot at Spurs soon. I thought he'd be
he's
wanting
always had
to.
A soft spot because of Sir Bobby Robson, and he's never won a league game up on at St James's Park actually. But yeah, no, that's an interesting one. But no, we're not deluded. We're not expecting to go out and sign, I don't know, Harry Kane and De Bruyne. We're not. That's not what we are. What we want, what Newcastle fans want, is a football team and a club that tries to be the best that it can be. And it's so long since we've even had that. And to have something to get behind,
You'd hope with these owners, they're not there to finish 17th and get the TV money. They're not. They've got ambition to be the best. Yeah, and they might be, because they may not be football people. They might misinterpret how to get to be the best. They might just think it's about piling in money or whatever, or because they might just be used to it, having successful businesses because you've got money to buy successful businesses. So they might be in for a bit of a shock, but you'd think they're going to pump some money in to make it as good as they can.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's bizarre. Like if you look at the corporate Newcastle documents that have filed over the last few years on Companies House, even in those documents, the club admits that it just strives to exist as a Premier League. And, you compare that to any other football club or even any other business. Almost all businesses strive to be the best that they can be.
Yeah.
And Newcastle hasn't even tried that. He completely gave up on any ambition. Because it's not worth. I guess the ups and downs he doesn't like that do come with football. The rumors were that when a few years ago when we finished 5th and we were on in and out chance of getting Champions League, that he was furious that we didn't get Champions League.
Yeah.
But he doesn't understand football. He never has. Kevin Keegan's famous words. I think he said, because at the time we had this guy Derek Lambias.
Yeah.
And Keegan said, the problem with Derek Lambias is he knows nothing about football. And the problem with Mike Ashley is he knows even less than Derek.
Is Derek still around?
No, long gone. He went up to Rangers for a bit, but hasn't been seen for a long time. Yeah.
Well, the name rings a bell, but we're going back quite a few years. I mean, I've got to explain to people, Cameron Dempsey's mentioned this about FFP. And there is this misconception that FFP will stop Newcastle spending money. So I don't know how much you know about FFP.
Not a great deal. It's not something that's bothered us ever before.
Well, as far as I understand it, okay. Now people are thinking, well, you can't spend more than what you got. It is not so straightforward. And I'll tell you why this happened. I'll go back a bit. The Italian clubs, they were in the doldrums. They were struggling, and they got new owners. AC Milan certainly got new owners. I think Inter as well, and maybe somebody else. They got new owners, but they had that problem that any new owner would have now, that you just cannot pump money into a club and buy success. You've got to go within the FFP guidelines. So I think, I can't remember, 2 or 3 years ago, whenever it was, UEFA, in their wisdom, twisted the FFP guidelines. So if you got a new owner, you could spend more money. But I think you had 4 years to show that you were working towards FFP. You can't just go and for argument's sake, have a loss of 200 million, 200 million, 200 million, and 200 million for 4 years. That won't cut it. You've got to show that your requirements within 4 years. So it could be, I'm not sure if this is strictly true, but they could just consider, we'll have a loss of 300 million first year, a loss of 150 the second year, a loss of 50 million the third year, fourth year, we're going to break even. Yeah. And, I'm just giving that as an example. So that's what one of my good friends, Colin Savage, has basically said. I think you got.
I think I read something similar online in a piece yesterday as well, actually, saying that you can actually invest at the beginning. Yeah, you can invest.
So because of the new owners, you can invest, and so that's going to give your owners an opportunity to actually pump some money in. And there's a lot of things going on in my head, and one of them is, once we're out of all this situation, football's going to be different. If transfer fees drop, and you're in pole position, your man's got the money to actually spend. Other clubs have got FFP to deal with them. I think FFP will be changed a little bit, because obviously everybody's going to lose money this season or this year because of what's happened. So that might be tweaked as well to allow people to put some in. But your man could be in pole position to actually pump a few £100 million in, go out and buy players on the cheap, because
possible
fees might be dropping because they just can't afford it. And you could actually end up with 4 or 5 really decent players at knockdown prices. For argument's sake, paying 40 million for someone that's worth 80. For argument's sake, going to Villa and saying, you're screwed up for money. They might not be, but just say, you want 80 million for Jack Grealish. We'll give you 35 or 40 million because you need the money to fit in with FFP, for argument's sake. Your owner can't just back you. So you might be in a great position to spend money, and it's come at potentially it's come at the right time. So I've got to ask you a question at the end of all this, but do you see or do you hope to see you going out and spending a few $100 million and buying out 4 or 5 good players?
Well, I think obviously everyone wants to see investment in a team. So yeah absolutely. And I think, but the number one thing, first of all, is that you need an elite level manager, which Steve Bruce is not that. And I mentioned, I think the likelihood is that Rafa would probably come back, and he is an elite level manager, and and I think Rafa with a current squad with 4 or 5 additions would probably challenge the top 6, actually, not the top 3 or 4, but it would certainly be up there, and then build from there. I think is a real possibility. Obviously we need to wait and see what happens with the whole season. I mean, we've got a small matter of needing to beat someone in the FA Cup first, if possible.
I'm really looking forward to going up to Newcastle, because everybody was just like, I think it was an evening kickoff on a Saturday night.
It was going to be great. Yeah,
it was going to be like party time for everybody up in Newcastle. It was going to be like, it was going to be win, lose or draw. It was going to be party time up in Newcastle.
It was. No, that got taken away from us all, I think. And it looks like it could be a very long time before we see big crowds at football matches again.
I mean, I'll ask you this question. Lots of people have talked about it. I mean, going off on a tangent before we come back to talk about Newcastle and the owners. How do you want to see the season? Do you want to see it finish? Do you want to see it null and void? Do you want to see it stop now, keep the positions? Or do you want to see them in 6 months' time or whenever finish this season? Does it matter?
I think it matters, and I think you have to finish it. My initial view when this all started happening was just wait however long it takes and then restart. I think you kind of have to. I guess it seems like there's other contractual financial issues at play here with the TV money and all of that, isn't there? So that's why they're pushing to get it done. But football without fans is nothing. So I'm completely against playing football playing the games. I'd rather wait than them play the games behind closed doors. And
you can see why they'll do it, because it's purely they want the money.
But football without us as fans there is nothing. So, and I think, I'd rather just wait, take what it is, take what it takes. It's a global crisis. And it'll take what it takes.
I was talking to some City fans today, and we were talking about because a lot of them are my sort of age. We're in our late 40s, early 50s, whatever. And we were just discussing what would you do? What's going to happen when this is all over, or if they play matches behind closed doors, or if they do live fans, would you go? And to a man, there's people there who go to all the matches in Europe, everything. And so you've got people who go to every single game. Last season, 61 games, might have gone to 60 or 61, one of my mates. And other people are going to, like me, 30, 40 games a season. Now, every single person said, unless there's a vaccine, unless it's 100% safe, not going. That's it.
But I don't think they'll let us go until it's safe. So I don't think that's going to be an issue. Honestly, I don't think they'll allow gatherings until it's safe.
We don't. I'm not going to go on to the politics side.
Yeah.
We just don't know with this government.
True.
They let us have the gatherings a little bit too long, whereas everybody else said stop. They said carry on. So they might, because who knows? But I think to all my older friends, because people are getting ill as well, and they got family who are not so well, and they're saying I just would not go. And people have said until there's a vaccine. I mean, you can have drugs, and they might be able to get some antivirals and whatever. But people are saying, and other people are saying, actually, I'm not bothered about football anymore. With the VAR, with all this distasteful talk about finishing the season when it's not the right. People are saying, I knew people who were going to give up.
Well, a lot of Newcastle fans have given up over the years already before this. So I guess, it'll be interesting to see. But no, I think you're right. A lot of people will be nervous until we know that it's safe to do so.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to take risks with health. I've just been out at the shops today and I ended up losing my rag with someone for coming too close to us.
Well,
come on, 2 meters. It's not hard. So people are on edge.
I've not been out of the house. Yeah. I think I've not been out of the house for 3 weeks.
I've only been to go to the shop and that's it. But
I've not even done that. All we've done is get stuff ordered and that's it. I think I have to go to doctors in the next couple of days to pick up some prescriptions, and that's the first time I'll go out in 3 weeks, apart from in the back garden. It's tough. Christopher wants, and we're going to go back to Newcastle now, talking about that. Christopher wants to ask, what does this mean for St James's Park? I'm guessing we're talking about whether you'll keep your name. No, because it won't be the sports that won't be associated. But what are the possibilities of you expanding your ground or redeveloping it? I don't know. What would you want to see, and what do you think?
So I don't think we need to at the moment. I think we might, depending on how it goes, there might be that demand might be there. One of the things that we've worked against recently. So when our owner acquired the club, he also acquired the land adjacent to the Gallagher End, which he decided to sell off personal profit rather than for the club for development. That development has planning permission. We objected to it as a trust to try and stop it and delay it. But we fought it as much as we could, but it was always going to go one way. But there's a hope there that, could these guys come in too late or not? Could they potentially stop that development by buying that lease back? It's possible, but it might be too far down the line. But that's, you've been at St James's Park. That's the metro station in the car park, basically behind the Gallagher End. It's the gateway. It's a gateway land between the city and the ground, and we always maintain that should be developed for the club. as a gateway there, you know, some sort of complex, whatever it is, you know, it's just prime to be that gateway. From what I understand, you could extend the Gallagher end up to level 7, the same as you've seen, the size, you know, the same height that you get at the away end, at the Leazes end that you'll have been in. That would be very expensive for what would only be 6,000 or 7,000 new seats. But from my perspective, I would want us to stay at St James's Park. You know, 52,000 is still a decent size. To be honest, pretty not far off where you guys are at the moment. And I think, you know, the location and the history of that and what that brings on a unique atmosphere in Newcastle on a match day, having the ground in the city centre, all the pubs, you know, one of this home fans only lot you get in most places, you know. I think it makes Newcastle one of the unique sporting days out for football, and I think, you know, we should preserve that at all costs.
What if he says, I'm going to knock it down and build a 70,000 seater stadium so that we can get concerts in there, we can get possibly international matches or other games and other sporting fixtures there.
But we do that already. So we've had the Rugby World Cup. We've had we had the New Zealand play there, Scotland play there in the Rugby World Cup. We've had concerts recently. Some bloke called Ed Sheeran or something. We've had Magic Weekend, Rugby League Magic Weekend. We got that off you guys. You had that a few times. I think Man United had it as well. We've had that multiple times. You know, we're going to be. We've had the Heineken Cup. You know, so the stadium already attracts that. So, you know, maybe that extra 6,000 seats would be viable. I would want us to stay put if we can. And then, you know, the other option is can you knock it down and rebuild it in the same place like Tottenham have done?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
That would, looking at it, I think it would be possible, but it would be incredibly challenging. And we have a big problem of there's nowhere to go.
Sunderland
can't play it.
They got a big enough stadium. They got 40.
Well, we've got 48,000 empty seats every week. But you know, a couple of divisions apart. You know, mind the gap and all that. But you know, you can't play at Sunderland. You just can't. I think it's too far. Actually, it's only what 13 miles or something. But, you know, to take that mass of people all that way, and you know, I think the police would have something to say about that.
I just knew. If I set you up, you wouldn't miss that open goal. David Waller's asking about Newcastle boss if the takeover deal happens, but I think you've already said you're hoping.
Yeah, I think it'll be rougher. Yeah.
We're going to move on to something that I think we've already seen. We've already seen it. City fans have had it. We've had it for a few years now. When we got good, when we started winning stuff, and when it wasn't just a flash in the pan. So 2011, we won the FA Cup. 2012, we won the league. And then we fell down the next year. But we bounced back and won the league and the League Cup the year after under Manuel Pellegrini, who shamefully didn't get manager of the season after winning the Premier League in his first season and the League Cup, but that's a different story. But we've been dogged, FFP aside, in the last few years about things about our owner and what goes on in Abu Dhabi. And the fans have been basically linked. You know, we look at it as we're fans. We are the club. They might own it. They're the custodians right now. They're making the money out of it. But the fans are the club. And the fans have been basically, what's the right word? We've been abused by some in the media. Some of the journalists really had to go. The names were being called rats. And I think Matthew Side said sewer rats. Called a lot worse than that by others. And talking about human rights and everything else and saying we shouldn't be going to the games or whatever, basically saying that, or we should be opposed to our owners and we should be making a stand at games or whatever, and we're banned or whatever, when we just want to watch football. And you feel that, as I said, it started already, do you feel that's going to come to you, and how's it going to affect your fans?
Well, it started already. And I think it is a morally difficult for a lot of Newcastle fans, including myself. But it's not impossible to be really excited about the end of Mike Ashley's era and to be really excited about being a proper sporting entity again, while still having serious reservations and serious concerns about the human rights issues in Saudi Arabia. The two are not interlinked. They're not mutually, one thing. Now, it's quite clear that there are issues there. Now, like you said, we support Newcastle United. We didn't choose Mike Ashley. We didn't choose this new owner who's coming. We are supporters of the football club, not the owner. And I think, it might raise awareness into some people that is good, but we cannot, as supporters of a football club, and you support your football club not out of choice. I didn't pick Newcastle United. I was born in Newcastle.
It picked you.
It picked me. And so those two things, you absolutely can still support your football team and still have serious concerns there. They are not the same thing. It's a billionaire's playground at that level, and it's a consequence of modern football that the fans of individual clubs cannot be held accountable for. So I read read all sorts on this today, and I think the bottom line is we support the football club, and you can still have those concerns, and they are separate things. We've had, I read a line today about the BBC wanting to hear fans' concerns about this. Well, if the BBC really care, why don't they ask Steve Bruce on Match of the Day on Saturday night? But they wouldn't, would they? So it's an interesting one that this keeps coming back to the fans, and so it's difficult. There's definitely some moral dilemmas there, and some will find it very difficult. A lot won't. That's just the nature of life in society. But you cannot blame Newcastle fans for the owners of the game. The way that is, the billionaires who work on, Mike Ashley's decided who he sells a football club to, and it's a consequence of the capitalist world that we exist in. The UK government recognizes Saudi Arabia and trades with Saudi Arabia. Our potential new owner met Theresa May in Downing Street recently, when she was a prime minister, and had an audience with the Queen at Buckingham Palace. How can it be blamed on Newcastle fans that serious concerns about Saudi Arabia and what you read and what goes on there is not good, right? No bones about it. But that's not Newcastle United fans doing.
Yeah. So the point is, why are some in the media, some journalists, I can answer that question, but why is some of these journalists putting the onus on Newcastle United fans who are football fans? Why is the onus protest?
It's an easy story. It's an easy story. It's an easy target, I think.
Yeah.
One of the most vocal journalists in the last few days about this, and I won't actually name him because he gives him more credit. He works for a newspaper part owned by the Saudi state.
Look, we've been on it, Mike. It's Miguel Delaney.
You know who it is.
Yeah, look, we know him. We've had him, Miguel Delaney. We've got Ewan. What's his McKenna? There's a whole host of them, and the thing with these guys, they either fail to see the hypocrisy of what they're saying, or they see it quite clearly, but they're in it for the money. And I'm quite clear about a lot of them, and this is why they rattle the fans' cages, because, well, if they had a go at the government, no one cares. Okay.
Yeah.
If you have a go at some company, no one cares. You have a go at football fans, the football fans will react because it's your club. You're going to fight.
Yeah. I agree, and I cannot say it enough. What you read about some of the things that occur in Saudi Arabia is abhorrent. And we don't know exactly who is going to be involved in our football club.
Yeah.
But you can't link the two in terms of the fact. Yes, you can link the two once they own the club, right? But you can't blame the fans. We've had no say in this matter whatsoever, and we support Newcastle United, not the owner.
Yeah. Well, these guys, you got Barney Roney for one. He had a pop, and it's like, well, hang on a minute, Barney. You're having a go at Newcastle for their potential new owner who's from Saudi Arabia. You went to the World Cup in 2018 in Russia. Are they any better? And didn't he write a book about and talk about Putin? Basically, forgive me for the language I'm going to use, but Barney Roney has got a brown tongue for one of the things he said about Putin. Really praising him to the rafters. And hang on, didn't this guy's lot shoot down an aeroplane as it was flying overhead and killed 270 people? Was it? I actually had a personal connection because some of my wife's colleagues were on that plane. So this is the kind of thing you have. The journalists who are basically hypocrites for doing that. And then you've got people who work for The Independent, which is part owned by a Saudi and a Russian. And all these other things going on. It's just absolutely ludicrous and crazy. And all these guys who went to Russia, they never said, oh, hang on, we're not going to go to Russia. And all these guys that go to Abu Dhabi Formula One Grand Prix, or that went to Saudi Arabia for a boxing match, or for the WWE, or wherever these free sandwiches are offered, or whatever, they're all there. And then they have a pop-up football fans. And I mean, I part of one of my crusades is about the racism in some of the papers and how they've treated young black footballers. I've never once seen a single journalist condemn or criticize one of their colleagues for what they've written, vilifying and demonizing young black footballers. Never seen it. And they never will, because it's all about money. Because you go and do that, you're going to be a pariah in your industry, or you're not going to be in one numbers of your free tickets to FA Cup finals and Champions League and all World Cups and everything that goes with that. So you're going to give up a cushy life to push this moral crusade, and it's the same with these journalists. And sadly, I think you guys are just going to have to get used to it and fight back. I mean,
I've got one of our local journalists tonight tweeted pretty much what I just said. Actually, his exact words. I've got it here. The concerns over the Saudi human rights record as they become involved in Newcastle United are fine to raise, and it is right to discuss them, and it brings attention to them. But while the UK government and the UK monarchy welcomes the Saudi royal family with open arms, as they have to and continue to do so, it is not the responsibility of Newcastle United fans to deal with that issue.
There you go. And I think you can't really say more than that. You can turn around and, I mean, people could say, I'm not going to support the club because of the owners. Fair enough, that's their choice.
Yeah, that's their choice.
Free choice. The same with, we can feel like there's things that our own government has done wrong. And, if they're trading with this country, then why can't we work with that country? It's ludicrous, as I said. And I've got a feeling that some of you Geordie fans, you stand for a little less nonsense than other football fans. And I think some of these journalists might get put in their place.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how it continues and how it goes. It's a really funny one because it is a moral dilemma, but I maintain that they're not the same thing.
Yeah, they're just mixing the two. As I said, they're mixing the two. We know what it is. It's clickbait. It's to get you guys riled, and that leads them to writing more articles. Keeps you guys riled. Gets the clicks. I mean, Independent now is basically an online comic half the time, and they need people to click and to subscribe and whatever. And if they were sensible and if they had no drama, who'd subscribe?
Yep.
Yeah. Let's look at some of the questions. Just Joe's thinking, do you think it's going to go through? I think we've already answered that.
Yep.
That's why we're having this conversation. Let's have a look. Christopher Johnson is talking about actually not having a meeting with our current owners, and he went on the lash rather than turn up for a meeting or something. And
so your guys wanted to buy Newcastle.
Yeah.
And Ashley was there to meet them, and he didn't turn up. He didn't turn up to the meeting. Went out drinking instead. Is what we're reliably informed by some pretty good sources. We say want to buy. One of the clubs they were interested in was Newcastle. It wasn't that long after he bought the club, so he may not have been that interested in selling. But he'd have
made a profit on the deal. He would have made
a profit.
I think if he's bought it for whatever, and they say we'll offer you an extra 100 million.
How much did they buy you for? Remember?
I think it was 200 million.
Yeah, so that would have been a profit. If they paid 200 million for Newcastle at that time, it would have been a profit for him. So,
yeah, I think with City, it was not the fact that they paid 200. They had to pay off all the debt, and we were before they took us over. We were almost gone. We were.
I mean, that's one of the things that Ashley has done. The football club is more financially stable. In that regard, we weren't in a wonderful position. He inherited debt. but it was manageable, relatively manageable to a degree. It was mainly stadium financing, and he didn't do due diligence, we're told, and there was a clause in the loan that the club that Freddie Shepherd had taken out against the stadium for the redevelopment that meant that upon change of ownership, the balance was due in full. So maybe you should have read it.
Yeah. Here's a question. I mean, this is kind of stuff has cropped up a few times on our channel, and we don't really give it much shrift, but people are asking. Might not want to answer. I don't know what you feel about him. Someone's asking about True Geordie. What do you think he's going to make of this after spending the last 2 or 3 years making money to criticising Man City? As I said, creating a bit of a drama and to get people to watch his stuff. Will this make him a hypocrite if he carries on supporting Newcastle?
I don't know enough about him and about what he's been saying about you guys, to be honest. But so I can't really answer the question, to be honest.
I only ever see what comes occasionally. People will come on and say, "Oh, he said this, he said that."
The last time I heard of him, involved with some dodgy messages with his partner.
That we have heard. Yeah. So he's another almost Barry Glendenning type. Let's not go too much into Barry. He's embarrassed himself enough, I think, in the past. But yeah, a lot of City fans, were with this FFP and other things that are taxed on City. They looked at it and said, "Look, we know we got lucky. We know we got lucky with our owners. As I said, we were almost bankrupt. We had the ex-Prime Minister of Thailand, Thaksin Shinawatra. He was our owner. He got his assets
frozen, weren't they? Yeah.
Yeah, they frozen. They froze his assets. I mean, that's not a pleasant thought, freezing your assets. But and so we were in trouble, and we got bailed out, and we got bailed out there. But we've always said, it was our time. Let's enjoy it. And a lot of City fans, we don't begrudge anyone else having the same look that we had. It was our time. We've enjoyed it. We're enjoying it. Maybe in 5 years' time, it was somebody else's turn, like Leicester or like Aston Villa or Wolves or Newcastle. So I think a lot of City fans, yes, you want to see your own team win, but you're grateful for what's happened and you enjoy it. But you say maybe it's somebody else's turn. Do you? Yeah. How have you viewed City's takeover? Do you view that as like someone like True Geordie would really criticise us and call us cheats and financial doping, which is basically based upon jealousy? Because if this was happening at your club, I don't think you'd complain about it. But how do you view City, and how do you think other people will view you if come whenever we are allowed to do transfers, you go out and spend 300 million quid? How are you going to be viewed?
People criticise, but at the end of the day, actually, if you think to it, when we had, when we nearly won the league, should have won the league, we had a modern equivalent in Sir John Hall back in the club when 15 million was the world record transfer fee with the brewery support, and Blackburn did the same. Actually, it was just when it was at a much lower level. So this has always happened in football. Wealthy people putting money in to the club that they own. It's nothing new. It's just done on a mega level now because that's the way with globalization and capitalism the sport has gone. So I don't think it's necessarily let us enjoy it and see what happens. I think it's always happened. It's always happened.
I think the difference in years gone by, it's
a local businessman.
Local lad made good or whatever. Franny Lee, he bought City, made his money in toilet rolls, and after his playing career and whatever, he made his money and he had the money to spend, put it into City. And other people, boyhood club or whatever, local businessman, and now it's just not. I mean, do you miss that? I mean, you're probably not old enough, really, for those days when it was your local businessman, Peter Swales, or terrible times. But do you miss that thought?
So, I mean, I'm probably not really old. I mean, I'm 34, so probably not old enough. But I certainly miss Newcastle being ambitious and successful. Back in the 90s. I grew up on Kevin Keegan as a manager and then learning, going in growing up, Bobby Robson in the Champions League and all that. So certainly missed that. And yeah, and it was nice to switch it up. We had for quite a while. We had that rigid top four as well.
Yeah,
and it wasn't bad to shift that up a bit.
If you look
and Spurs have done that now as well.
Yeah.
In a
look at it now.
different way.
You look at it now, and you've got Chelsea, you've got City, you've got Spurs, Arsenal, United, and Liverpool. You've got 6 teams there. Whereas, you go back into the mid-90s, you had 2 basically. You had United and Arsenal, and then Chelsea came along. So here's a question. It's just a bit of a laugh. What do you think the derby will be called, or the game between City and Newcastle, when it next happens? If you've got your new owners, will it be? I don't know what it's going to be, because we've had the City, Chelsea, was it El Clasico, or what do you reckon? Man City versus Newcastle.
I haven't given it any thought, so I really don't know what you're going to call it. Yeah, it's yeah. Any ideas?
No, I've got no ideas. I mean, I've been really thinking about it because you've had so many stats with this takeover that I've not taken it seriously until a friend of mine 2 or 3 days ago tweeted about what's going on at Company's House. That was Kieran.
I don't think. I mean, it's not something I really worry about. It's not really a derby. Never will be a derby. But the one thing I'm looking forward to about having a good team, well with you guys, is that as a Newcastle fan, growing up on that Kevin Keegan team, I'm wearing the shirt actually from that era, goalkeeper shirt right tonight. Is that there's nothing better than beating Manchester United. That I can't. We had them the live played back as live the 5-0 game the other week.
Oh, I love that.
When this lockdown just started, and everyone, it is, there's something special about beating Man United. I have to say.
Was that 5th goal Philippe Albert?
Philippe Albert with the chip, Philippe Albert with the little chip. I've actually got the main man right there. There we go, Philippe Albert with the chip.
I tell you what, going back to those days when United were miles ahead, and they had the money as well, and they had the clout and everything else.
Well, we should have won the league that year, though. We should have the year before. Sorry, the year before. We
nicking players off like you had Andy Cole.
Andy Cole was brilliant for us. One of my idols as a kid.
Yeah, we had Ryan Giggs as a kid, and I think Ferguson or whoever turned up and nabbed Ryan Giggs. And you can turn around now and say, well, he's happy. He was happy United took him or whatever, but he was a City kid. They were taking all the best and buying from the like Bayern Munich do in Germany, buy from any challengers, buy their best players. And Cole was one of your best players, and obviously proved that playing for you guys and at United. So it's nice to look back at sometimes in the 90s or whenever, when you beat them 5-0, we beat them 5-1 in a game, and look back and you think, I love that.
One of the things actually really looking forward to is for young kids in Newcastle to be able to dream again. So kids in Newcastle, you see way too many shirts of other teams, including Man City shirts, which I don't like to see in Newcastle, because I think people from Newcastle should support Newcastle. And it must be awful for kids now, having grown up on 13 years of that. I'm not even trying to be a proper sporting institute, not even trying, to be the best it can be. So if that's what comes back, giving these guys that hope and to have some heroes of their own, it'll be worth it,
I think on those positive words, I think probably time, rolling up to an hour, we knock it on the head. It's been a fabulous chat.
Thank you. Thanks for having us on.
It's been great.
All the best. Stay safe, and hopefully we'll get to again soon.
Oh yeah, hopefully, and hopefully, well, if we do end up playing that FA Cup match, it'd be nice to see you up.
No, definitely.
Yeah. All right, guys, take it easy. Thank you very much, Greg, for coming on tonight.
Cheers.
And thank you, everybody else, and we'll see you tomorrow. Cheers, guys. Press the end broadcast. It'll take a few seconds.